grab your popcorn and dim the lights. It's time for Dean and Dave Do Movies. Well, we're back again.
We are.
Another lovely Wednesday. A little switch up on what we're reviewing.
Yeah, we didn't get to see Elvis.
Not that we didn't get to.
We
We couldn't get it for free.
Yeah, that was the big problem.
We had a movie rental thing from a website we won't give free credit to.
Yeah, no. We could watch different movies that were not as new as Elvis, so we watched those instead, and we ended up watching The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
A theaterized Nick Cage film after his continual straight-to-streaming films, which personally, after watching this, I am more inclined to watch his films, because I fell out of love with him.
Good. Yeah, no, I always like Nick Cage. Don't always take him too seriously, but he's definitely beloved for sure. I mean, Community did an episode where like they took a whole class on Nicolas Cage and his performances. So, yeah.
Yes, thespian side, as he once said, as a true thespian, really came out in this movie.
Yeah. So, yeah. We are going to review The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Rated R, so not for kids.
No, 147 minutes, not too long. Nice, under 2 hours. Directed by Tom Gormican and Kevin Etten.
Tom Gormican was the director, as well as the co-writer of Kevin Etten, and Kevin Etten was also a producer. Music was composed by Mark Isham.
And stars Nicolas Cage, Pedro Pascal as Javi, Tiffany Haddish and Ike Barinholtz play CIA agents, and Neil Patrick Harris makes an appearance in this movie as Nicolas Cage's agent. Neil Patrick Harris also revived his film career, or movie career, acting career, let's say, by playing himself in Harold and Kumar. So it comes full circle here in a way.
It's the Guantanamo Bay, their second one, I think, right?
No, he's in the first one.
Oh, he is in the first one?
Yeah, no, they pick him up. He's like high on drugs and he wants to get strippers, and then like he steals their car. Yeah.
On the unicorn he shows up.
Something like that. I think he's in all three of them maybe, but the first one is the one that kind of like got his career back on track.
I had no idea.
Yeah, we should rewatch that one.
Deal. Budget for this movie is $30 million. Currently, the gross of the film, what do you call that, blockbuster, box office, $29 million.
And change.
Change.
I feel like it'll cross the threshold to at least break even.
Yeah, because the Northman, when we reviewed that, it was quite low, and then months after it was released, and now it's surpassed its own. So if it's already reaching its budget, it's gonna keep passing. Filmed in Dubrovnik, Croatia.
Yeah, beautiful location.
Set in Spain. I didn't know Croatia looked so nice.
Yeah, no, it does.
Quick synopsis. I'm going to try my best, so correct me if I'm making it more complicated, not as good as it was, or not as true. But Nick Cage, he's struggling with money. He needs to work and work and work. He has a relationship with his daughter that is not going as well as he wants it to go. He's being divorced, so that's causing a strain. And his agent is contacted by a fan who lives in Spain who's turning 40 and says that he will pay Nick Cage $1 million to show up. Needless to say, he takes the invitation, he takes the money. Reluctantly. And as he gets there, there's a plot for the FBI.
CIA.
You even have that written down there. See, it's good talking things out loud. The CIA try to contact him because they need his help while he's in Spain. Enough said. Nick Cage... Pedro, I keep forgetting his name because I never watched The Mandalorian.
Yeah, you need to watch that.
Yeah, Pedro Pascal. Okay, cool. What's my take on this movie?
Yeah.
I personally love this movie as someone who fell out of love. I don't know if I was ever truly in love with Nick Cage, but somebody who definitely was not a big fan, big supporter of his. This turned me completely around.
Oh, okay. Well.
This has turned me completely around. I am now watching his straight-to-stream films, or at least trying to get into them now, because this movie was so good, it drove me in. But I also realized that while it being a good movie, it's not a perfect movie. Even though I love it, it's not a masterpiece.
No. In its own way, it is. Like, in the Nick Cage universe, I feel like it's a culmination of things, but overall, it's not.
I haven't seen enough in the of his movies to make a pure judgment. What are your thoughts on this compared to his other movies?
Well, I don't think you can compare it to it's more a tribute to him, right? Like I don't think you can. I don't know. In that way, it is like this kind of spectacle, right? Where it's like a very meta film where it's about his life and he's playing himself, but it's kind of like a heightened version of it in this extreme situation, which makes the movie a lot more, I don't know, just like kind of fun and interesting, right? And I think fun for him even playing a version of himself and playing up to these different jokes and memes that have come out of his career, especially since he started doing these direct-to-video movies that you mentioned.
And then, like you say, it's a tribute to him. And Tom Gormican, the director, was a big Nick Cage film. Pedro Pascal was also a big fan, so there's a lot of homage to him in this movie.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting portrayal. And even himself, he wanted to play an unlikable character. He wanted to dive into it, but he also wanted to be careful because it is some pretty negative viewpoints to start with. But it turns around. It's quite a beautiful movie. Yeah. But it jumps around, like you were saying, about being a buddy cop film.
Yeah, like a buddy adventure kind of flick. Yeah, and you don't see I can't even think of the last movie buddy. Let's say buddy adventure, action adventure film that I've seen.
I'd say The Other Guys, Will Ferrell,
right?
Mark
And
Wahlberg.
that came out a long time ago, right? So, or maybe in 22 Jump Street, but you haven't really seen, or
Same
Pineapple
time.
Express, you haven't really seen a movie pull that off in a while, right? So it was kind of nice and refreshing to see. It reminded me of Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson in the day, or Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan in those buddy movies, or Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. We haven't seen those in a while, so it was nice to see that again, and that they had really good chemistry.
Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito.
Sure, yeah.
Actually, I was doing some research, and old Tom, the director there, he wanted to cover 5 Nick Cage genres. So at the beginning, it was a drama.
Okay.
Kind of before he leaves to the island, before he goes to Spain.
Yeah.
The second one is buddy cop.
Okay.
So that's as they become friends, and Nick Cage is a little reluctant at first, but then once Pedro finds a way, or Javi gets to relate to him and show him that he's a big fan, because Nick Cage has a bit of that narcissism at the beginning.
Sure.
Where once he shows interest, then he opens up because it's about him, but then also about what he enjoys. Then it went to mystery thriller, which kind of stemmed around, I want to say, as they were trying to write their own movie after the CIA contacts them, especially when they do their big drug scene. That, I think, is kind of where the mystery thriller comes in.
Yeah.
Then it becomes an action blockbuster, which is they have Javi and Nick have a bit of a standoff at a certain point, and after that it's straight action, a lot of car chases, a lot of guns being fired at people, and then at the end of it becomes a family movie.
Yeah.
Where the family's involved, it's lovable, it's caring, everything wraps itself out nicely in a nice little bow.
Yeah, it had a
cherry on the top.
Fitting ending, happy ending. I didn't realize that they had intended to kind of break it up that way, but yeah, looking back on it, that's definitely how it came across. So,
and speaking of that, it's kind of funny because originally, I don't know how far along it came to it, but when they wrote the movie, they were considering Daniel Day-Lewis and Christian Bale to be Nick Cage. So they had a lot of thoughts on this movie. They had a lot of jumping around. So having Nick Cage in it, I think, is the perfect... No one can play Nick Cage like Nick Cage can play himself.
Although if you were going to get someone, I think those are the two guys that I would take. Like Christian Bale, when he played Dick Cheney, he totally got fat and he was unrecognizable. He can disappear into anyone, I feel. That would have been interesting to see.
Yeah, and he does have a similar structure too, where he does have
True.
a similar bone structure. Where even on the makeup and the beard, I think they could look alike. That'd be interesting to see as well.
Well, even I was looking at the guy that they got to play the younger Cage, because in the movie, bit of a spoiler, but there is a younger version of Nick Cage that plays his, I don't know, a part of his kind of conscience that's giving him a hard time, and they used a younger version of Nick Cage from the movie Wild at Heart. And they basically took another actor whose name is actually also Nick Whitman. There's similar facial features, just superimposed, and de-aged Nick's face onto him. But yeah, no, that was pretty cool to see as well, because I wasn't really expecting anything like that. So it's a very surreal kind of movie and just kind of Nick Cage experience overall.
And speaking on that again, kind of a spoiler alert, but there is a scene where Nick Cage decides to kiss Nick Cage.
Oh.
And that was actually Nick Cage's idea.
Right.
He said it was symbolic of the ethos of the movie, because he said in making a movie with two versions of himself, it's kind of like making out with yourself in the weirdest way. So he figured you might as well symbolically actually make out with himself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's not wrong.
And that was something that they decided on after. So Tom Gormican and what's his name? The other writer. We just talked about him. What is his name? What is his name? Trevor, or was it
Kevin Etten.
Kevin? Yeah, Kevin Etten. Kevin Etten. When they wrote this movie, they did not put in that scene, but when Nick Cage got involved with the film, that was something that he specifically put in.
Right.
Which is interesting because it goes to show how involved he is in his films, and also what he can add to a film, not only acting-wise, but scenes-wise. He can make things change and put into perspectives. It's like the kissing. I never thought anything of it much, and then once they broke it down, as someone who's not a thespian, I didn't understand it, but now I still don't. But it sounds good. That's what it's all about. It all sounds good.
It's also nice to see him being able to kind of not take himself too seriously, right? So
he actually also turned down the film 3 to 4 times. So it's funny because he took the film seriously. He added a lot to it, but he didn't want to do it originally. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until Tom Gormican sent him a personal letter.
Yeah,
and it's because Nick also really wanted. Well, he convinced him that they want to make a real movie. He didn't want it to be like a sketch. He wanted it to be silly, or he didn't want it to be too negative. He wanted it to be real or somewhat real. Yeah. So Nick also demanded that he becomes unlikable. There's scenes like with his daughter at the birthday where it gets really cringy and really unlikable moments of him. But he wanted that because it added to the story and it really showed you that like he's trying, but he's not there, and he's kind of not the guy you want to root for.
Yeah.
But then they turn it around as they start getting funnier and playing with the action.
Yeah.
But Pedro killed it right away because he does have a true love. You've been watching Nick Cage since the 80s, and you could see it like when they talk. There was that movie magic, but there really was on-screen chemistry. It was really fun to watch.
They got along really well, and Pedro was just like overall just very delightful in his performance, very endearing. Like it was hard not to like the guy at all. He's also got this huge Nicolas Cage museum essentially, where it's all just like he's got like a bust of him, and I think it's from Face Off. He's got like all this memorabilia and everything, and Cage is very impressed by it.
Yeah, he makes that joke. How much did you pay for this? And he offers to pay him more.
Yeah.
Because in real life, Nick Cage, he had a dinosaur, like the fossils for, I think it was the dinosaur head.
Oh, wow.
And then he bought one more thing. Let me see if I can find this here. He bought a lot of wild things. He spent his money. So part of that was just him because of his old spending habits. Oh, and fun fact about Mark Isham, the composer. So he's like a trumpeter and a keyboardist as well as a composer. But he actually worked on Point Break, River Runs Through It, Of Mice and Men, Blade, and Kicking and Screaming.
Oh, okay, cool.
Just a fun fact for you to throw in the middle. Oh, and Kevin Etten, producer. He started on The Late Show with David Letterman, and then he was like writer-producer for some shows like Workaholics, Scrubs, Desperate Housewives. So there's like a lot of hidden different talents that not a lot of big-name draws besides for the acting crew. When it comes to composition, directing, writing, it's nothing that you notice right away. But after seeing the work, I think this is going to land them a few more roles. I think Nick Cage, this is his Neil Patrick Harris moment.
Well, exactly, and that's what I'm thinking is going to happen too. Like, I mean, it took Neil Patrick Harris, I think, a few years probably before he appeared on, I think, How I Met Your Mother, because I don't think he had been on it right away, right after Harold and Kumar. But I think maybe this could be Nick Cage's, version of that, right? Maybe he'll land something soon. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Okay, what if you had to name one scene for what is most memorable? What would it be?
Most memorable. I mean, I think people have seen it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was kind of revealed in the trailer too, but just like the whole scene at the wall where they're trying to escape and they're trying to think like, oh, I can't get over the wall, and they're kind of saying their goodbyes and stuff like that, and then they realize they can just walk around the wall. I really enjoyed that whole scene, and yeah.
There's the scene where, so I'm torn between two, but what I really got out of this movie, because not knowing Pedro Pascal,
right,
was just like the way he looked at Nick Cage always made me laugh.
Yeah.
How much love and how much respect he had.
Yeah.
So the scene where they about to jump off the cliff and he's trying to entice Nick Cage and trying to get him because he doesn't want to be there, so he pretends like he's on the chase and he's got to be running away. And in his mind, he wrote up this whole idea for a movie about how he's in love with this daughter of a general, but they're both in the army, and the general wants him killed because he's in love with his daughter, and he entices Nick Cage to jump off a cliff, and that was a fun moment.
Right.
But we also have to talk about their third favorite film of all time, Paddington 2.
Right.
When they talk about these films, there was like the professor of some German film in the 30s or 20s.
Oh yes, oh man, yeah, Dr. Caligula or whatever.
Yeah,
It's
Dr.
from the
Caligula.
1920s. Yes, yeah. I didn't. I didn't realize like when they said it in the movie, I was like, is that even a real movie? But apparently it is.
Yeah, well, Nick Cage was a really big movie fan, and
Yeah.
I think during that point, Tom was saying that he was really into Japanese horror.
Oh.
So Nick Cage really jumps through the genres, and he truly like appreciates. Like, he is a thespian; he loves and he lives in the acting world, and so when he also talked about his daughter, he didn't want to be portrayed as an absentee father, so he made it more so where he was trying to mold her into something that she wasn't, and it was adding on pressure he wasn't aware of. But when it comes to the film, and like that is a true passion of his and something he's tried to share, because that is what he's like with movies. He loves them and he lives them.
Well, you know who his dad is, right?
No.
So his dad is Francis Ford Coppola, who did The Godfather and all that kind of
Really?
stuff. Like, yeah. So Nick Cage took a different name so that he wouldn't be associated with like his famous family, but his family is like huge in Hollywood, right? That's what you'll find with a lot of actors. It's just like their parents were huge in Hollywood, and that's how they became actors usually. So
I had no idea that.
and you wouldn't
hilarious.
think that, but yeah, that's why he changed his name to Nick Cage. But before it was Coppola. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting. But again, Paddington 2.
never seen it.
I
Never
have
saw
not.
Paddington 1.
I've seen the commercials.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
about as much as I've seen.
Yellow hat,
But they
blue
watch
jacket.
that movie, and they have that reaction because apparently it's a really good movie and
A tearjerker.
a tearjerker. So Kevin and Tom like the thought that so when they were writing the movie, they thought it'd be funny because Nick Cage actually did watch that movie.
Oh,
but
okay.
they thought, okay, what would be a movie that Nick Cage maybe hasn't seen or a funny one to bring up? And because they were talking about Dr. Caligula, and I don't recall what the second movie was. I think it was one of Nick Cage's movies, though, maybe Wild at Heart. And by the time they got to the third movie, they're like, what would be really funny? Paddington 2. So that's why they brought that up, and because it was a good movie.
Okay. Yeah, no, it definitely got me curious. I will have to watch it. Maybe we'll have to review it.
So, how full is this bush?
This
1 to
book-
10.
It's I think it's like 70% full.
70% IMDb levels.
Yeah, so 7 out of 10 I'd give it. I would say I enjoyed it. I am not a huge Nick Cage fan. I like him. I think he's entertaining. I think he does a good job at that. Pedro Pascal was what's the word? Very endearing in this movie. I really enjoyed watching him and their chemistry.
Captivating in certain scenes.
The only thing I guess I didn't really like about the movie was the whole CIA secret agent aspect of it. It was a good idea. It wasn't well executed, I thought. I thought they could have just made it where it's like Nick Cage gets invited to this island and it's not what it seems like, with this guy. And he's just trying to get himself out of a hairy situation rather than also kind of adding this like secret agent aspect to it. I don't know I don't feel like they put enough effort into that aspect to make it worthwhile. Aside from that, I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a very meta film. It poked fun and had references to so many Nick Cage movies and just memes and all that kind of stuff. Like, if you're a Nick Cage fan, I think you'll get even more out of this movie because you'll just kind of recognize so many homages and tributes to his career. But yeah, I think if you're looking for a fun buddy film, definitely go check this out. I think it's you can have a good time.
Myself personally, now I am known to be an easy rater, so I have been able to step back and objectively look. Personally, I love this movie a lot. I would give it for myself a 9 because that's what I would give it. But for the review and for the general public, I think it's an 8. I like it because it's a goofy movie you can put on, you can have fun, you don't have to pay attention to. But when it comes down to it, the short and curlies, the bush is about 80% full.
Well, no, you gave it. You personally gave it a 9.
Which is a full
bush.
It's a full bush, but I think in the purpose of the movie itself, an 8 out of 10. I think the main reason why I can give it a high rating is because you can sit down. There's 5 genres of the movie: buddy cop, dramatic, thriller, action, family. You can watch it if you had a party of, let's say, I don't know, 10 people. You could put on that movie everyone's gonna find a part they like.
Yeah.
So I think that's the big appeal of this movie. With you, I would have to agree on the CIA plot. I thought it was a good idea, but with Ike Barinholtz from Matt TV, that was my preference, by the way.
Oh yeah, no, I like him and Tiffany Haddish both. I just wanted to see them used better in the movie, right? Used more fully, I think.
I think when they did use them, I think it was really funny, but kind of like Nick Cage, how he didn't want the movie to be more of a sketch. He wanted it to be a little more taken seriously. I think when it came to the CIA subplot, it was very sketch comedy style, where there's a lot of aspects where they were explained, they happened as they were being narrated, but it was a lot of, you had to take it with a grain of salt. You don't have to ask any questions. You just say, "Oh, this is happening now," and it kept moving like a sketch would,
right.
Where you just listen to you listen to what's happening, not the context behind it.
Right.
So that was entertaining, but it could have been done differently. But it was a great pairing for the CIA, Ike Barinholtz and Tiffany Haddish.
Yeah, they did well together. Yeah.
I haven't seen them I've seen Tiffany Haddish more recently, but Ike Barinholtz I haven't seen in a while. So it was really, and again, being a big Mad TV fan, it pulled it out for me. But that would be really the only negative side. And then there was a couple times where like I'm not a fan, like I don't have like a family of my own. Like I have a family, but I don't have my own family. So when it comes to like family movie kind of styles, it's not my appeal. So that's why I would have to step aside from it. But overall, 15 out of 20. It's a pretty good looking bush. And I think if you are not into Nick Cage, like myself, I wasn't really into it. If you watch this movie, I think it will turn you around on him, because it did to me. Now I watched his Netflix one, Willy's Wonderland. You watched Wild at Heart with the Nicky. I want to start watching. Yeah. I want to start jumping back into it. I think this is a great reintroduction into Nick Cage
and his career. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And, fun little fact, it looks like they're in the works of National Treasure 3.
Yep, we just saw news of that. I guess Jerry Bruckheimer says that there is a good enough script, and he's looking forward to kind of sending it off to Nick Cage, so you might see that. I haven't seen either of the other National Treasures. They kind of intrigue me, because they kind of seem like Indiana Jones-ish, so I could be on board for that.
I think it's Indiana Jones / Da Vinci Code.
Right, okay, yeah.
That style, and maybe we'll be talking about them very soon.
Yeah. Perhaps.
Well, thank you again for listening. I know you have many movie reviews to listen to, and we appreciate you for choosing ours.
And we'll be back soon with another one.
Oh, yeah. Craving a movie podcast with wicked wit and sizzling style?
Look no further. Dean and Dave Do Movies is your ticket to nonstop cinematic fun.
Don't miss a beat. Rate us 5 stars, subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts,
and share our show with fellow film fanatics.